So the reason why Disha Das became an assassin is because she's sick and tired of what's going on in society. Misogyny, sex trafficking, toxic masculinity. People like her who are always being taken advantage of, taken for granted, sidelined, undermined, being told they're less than men. And especially when you see Bollywood industries where they always portray women in glamour roles, where Disha's a lot more than that. So she wants to fight back against these societal injustices, something which is toxic but normalized in society. And she's had enough of that. And so one day she decided, enough's enough. I'm going to get back out there and serve justice and avenge all those other women who have been harmed by these toxic ideologies.
And I think if we go more into detail with her backstory, she had a friend at university. First, her parents were killed brutally. Her dad was killed, her mum was killed, raped. And she had been silenced herself growing up. She was bullied. She was, told she's not pretty enough. She was very, very, very bright, very bold, a lot to say, but silenced and punished, and threatened. And when she tried to speak up against this, she was completely ignored. So that's one thing. Another thing at university, her friends, two of her friends, one of her friends, Divya, who died of a drug overdose because her drink was spiked and then she was raped, and the person who raped her was let off with a very short sentence, and she started drinking, and then it got worse and worse and worse, and then she became dependent upon drugs, which happens to a lot of women when they are, their drinks are spiked and they're raped or they're silenced in any other way. When they're told their trauma isn't real, they turn to alcohol and drugs. It's really, really out there a lot. And that's one of the reasons she became an assassin, is because her friend killed herself. No, her friend died of an overdose. Another friend of hers, Jasmine, who was dating someone and they made a sex tape. It was consensual, it was private, and he leaked it and used it against her. And it worked. She was so upset by the abuse she was receiving, how she was vilified by the media, and she was punished for being violated, which is so common. I find it infuriating, and that really gave fuel to Disha to become an assassin. That was when she decided she wants to be the Viper, and she doesn't want to survive, she wants to kill.
So there's been quite a few events throughout Disha's life that shaped her ideology, her mindset, and why she is the way she is. She's been through traumatic events in her childhood, like her parents being brutally murdered by men who embodied toxic ideologies. And not to mention the secondary school she went to, where she had a headmaster who put her down, told her, I'm the adult, I'm the man, you listen to me. And in addition, her experiences at university where one of her friends was a victim of revenge porn, and her other friend who died of a drug overdose because she was silenced by society and everyone for consenting to a one-night stand from a nightclub, when what really happened was her drink was spiked and she was raped by a man who took advantage of her. And it's those key events where where Disha decides, that's it, enough's enough. If the law's not going to punish him, I will.
And I think those two questions are very connected. The two questions are very, very connected, because why she became an assassin and then what shaped her worldview, is basically the same thing, because her worldview is shaped by years and years of experience, years and years of traumas, friends dying, also her own beliefs. Only life can teach you what you really, really believe in, because when we're young, we just kind of have to survive, and we learn to cope and fit in and all that stuff. As we get older, and when we start feeling passion ourselves and start feeling a sense of self and starting to understand who we are, we understand that we don't like certain things and we like other things. For example, when I was at school, when I was doing my A-levels, I studied sexism because I innately have an interest in sexism and patriarchy and all these things. So I think Disha, she did have it innately in her to be a rebel, but I think all the experiences of her life also made her not trust the system because the system failed her.
So with these experiences, Disha initially tried to resolve these issues through the legal system. However, what she found was there were loopholes which these toxic masculine men exploited. They knew that they wouldn't get caught or punished for it, or at least not in the way they deserved to. And that's when she realized, that's the turning point for her, where she eventually realized that going through the legal system, it just isn't going to do it anymore. And she decides to take matters into her own hands. That, combined with her past experiences, is a key turning point in her life. Of course, it raises a question of, is she doing the right thing? Or, is it, can you justify being a vigilante? But yeah, there's a little bit of a moral gray area where it makes the audiences question, is she really in the right, or is she doing what's necessary just because the legal system is flawed?
Yeah, I think I also agree. I think that there is an argument debating justice and legality in this story. I think it's a really, really interesting thing that we can explore in the future, and it will give us a lot of there's a lot of scope for emotional development with Disha. There's so much to her personality that it would take like a number of features to do her justice, and fueling her mission. Um, these men that Baz just referred to, who violate humanity, and justice doesn't punish them in a way that is fair. So the legal system is absolutely flawed, and someone like Disha would be so infuriated by it. And the type of woman that she is, which is why she's there to lead and inspire, is that she's actually a deadly assassin. She doesn't think twice about killing people. She uses a stealth strategy, which is a huge part of, the how of how she kills is important because, someone's dead before they even realize that anything's bad's gonna happen to them. She's disguised as a prostitute. She kills people without them realizing it. That's her technique. And it's because, she's speaking up for people that don't have a voice. She's saying this, the message in this film, I believe, is giving a voice to the voiceless. For example, sex traffickers. And as Baz mentioned before, the social message is not against women being sort of showing off or wanting to be admired by men. We're not against that. We're not interested in that. That's not what this is about. This is about acknowledging that the media glamorizes beauty. We're not doing that. I remember Baz and I, we were talking about Disha, and he said, there's one line in the film, and it's beauty is skin deep. And he asked me, he said, do you want to present this in a threatening way? And I was like, no, absolutely not, because that implies that Disha, if I do it in a threatening way, that implies that Disha doesn't have a voice of her own. She really doesn't need to do that. She's in the process of, killing someone that the law won't kill. That's what she does. It's very focused.